The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy was an English novelist and poet who was born on June 2nd, 1840, at Stinsford in Dorset, United Kingdom. He was the eldest son of Thomas and Jemima. His father worked as a stonemason and a local builder, while his mother was a housewife. Thomas Hardy was educated by his mother until he was 8 years old. She played a very important role in his education. It was his mother who inculcated in him the interest of reading books. He showed great potential academically, but he had to end his studies at the age of 16 due to the family's financial issues. So he was sent to train as an architect with Mr. John Hicks, a local architect. In 1862, he moved to London, where he enrolled at King's College. After working as an architect for some time, he returned to Dorset in 1867. This is where he devoted much of his time on writing. During his lifetime, he wrote many popular stories, poems, and novels. Thomas Hardy died on 11th of January 1928. The Darkling Thrush, originally titled The Century's End, was first published on December 1900, The Graphic, and was later published for the second time in London Times on 1st January 1901. It is believed to have been written in December 1900. This poem symbolically mourns the passing of an era. It is an elegy that deals with the dead of the century. He has written this poem because the 19th century is coming to an end, and at the same time he has hopes that the 20th century will bring about change and new beginning. Now let's look at the title of the poem. Darkling means in darkness. Here it shows an end of days or death of a century. The 19th century is coming to an end. Remember, he had written this on December 1900, just before New Year. So he is anxious and nervous about the 20th century ahead of him. So therefore he uses this word darkling as a title. And thrush is a bird who loves to sing. So the thrush in this poem is a symbol of faith and hope. He uses thrush to show that the 20th century, the new era, has hope and life coming along with it. As I have already mentioned, Thomas Hardy wrote this poem at the end of the 19th century, and everything seems to be mourning over the dead of the century. But in the midst of sadness, he uses a thrush to bring a sign of hope and life. The poem begins with a sense of hopelessness and despair, but ends with a hopeful and positive note. I leaned upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey. Here the poet brings before our eyes a very cold, grey and dull environment. Okay, the mood feels very lonely and meditative. He opens the poem by telling how he leaned upon a coppice gate. So the poet is not standing, he is leaning on a gate and thinking hard, he is meditating. Here the word coppice refers to an area of a woodland in which the trees are regularly cut to ground level for firewood. So the poet leans on a gate that opens to the woods. He further describes the place by saying that the entire area was covered by frost, creating a ghostly atmosphere. So the area was cold and grey, and it looked like a haunted place. The frost here has been personified or given a human quality. He described it as spectre grey or simply ghost like grey. And winter's drags made desolate the weakening eye of day. It was the dead of winter. It was very cold. There was frost everywhere, and everything looks desolate or lonely. The worst part is that the day has come to an end. The eye of the day simply means the sun, and here the sun was about to set. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres. So the place where the poet was standing was not only cold and frosty, but the plants and the vine stems are all suffering too. Okay, the vine stems are all tangled and broken, and it has been compared to a broken musical instrument, the lyre. We can picture silence, loneliness, and disharmony in the surrounding area. And all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. All the residents in the area are nowhere to be found, so they have been said to have ghostly nature. It is cold, so naturally everyone chose to be indoors. They chose to sit beside the fireplace in their homes. So the first stanza is filled with imagery, like frost, spectre grey, dregs, desolate, weakening, broken, and haunted, gives a very clear image of hopelessness, disharmony, and sadness. All these can refer to the condition of England in the 19th century. The cold, wintry landscape is a representation of the dead of the 19th century. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlined. His crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind his dead lament. So the landscape, or the mountains that are covered with snow, looked like the dead body of the 19th century. The dark clouds in the sky has also been compared to the tomb or the grave of the century, and the cold wind blowing sounded like a lament or cry. So here we have a picture of a funeral, not of a person, but of the 19th century. The ancient pulse of germ and bird was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. Here he describes how winter has made all the pulse, or living things, hard and dry. Okay, everything seemed to be dead. He says every spirit upon earth seemed to lack energy or passion to live, just as the poet himself. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a full-hearted even song of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, in blast beruffled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. So suddenly, the speaker hears a very beautiful sound among the bleak branches of the trees above him. Now he must have looked around to see what was it. Now the beautiful melody changed the entire mood of the speaker. To his surprise, the melody was produced by an old, frail, gaunt, and small thrush. A very ugly looking little thrush. Your thrush is a singing bird, a songbird. So, amidst all the sadness and gloom, the thrush sang wholeheartedly and brought life and happiness. The thrush is old and frail, so it can symbolize the 19th century that was dying or ending. The thrush also symbolizes optimism even through dark and uncertain times. It gives hope to the speaker that better days are ahead of him. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good night air some blessed hope, whereof he knew and I was unaware. Here the speaker says he cannot understand what terrestrial thing on earth could make the bird so joyful amidst all the brokenness around him. He cannot understand what makes this bird so happy in spite of being so old, ugly, and small. Now, the bird could have been very sad. It could have looked at himself and say, "Oh, I'm about to die. I'm old and ugly." But the bird was not in such mood. It was happy. So the poet was confused. He cannot understand why the bird was caroling in such ecstatic sound and spreading the beautiful sound far and near. So the speaker concludes by saying that the thrush is blessed with some hope. Here, the hope can refer to spiritual hope, and that the thrush knows something the speaker doesn't. The little bird in this poem brings out a very important message to everyone, including the poet himself. It teaches us to have a positive outlook of whatever comes to us. The poet in the poem is mourning over the fact that the 19th century was coming to an end. He was sad and not ready for change, but the poet was given hope that everything will be fine and that better days are coming.